And as we would like to share with everyone um, this idea of inner transformation, it's again one of the topics that in this moment that we're going through right now, it's very, it pertains to it. It pertains to all of us. And we hope that we can learn with this. And we'll pass the word to Yasco to lead us tonight.
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming to this web teleconference. So, what I'm going to talk today is about inner transformation and the part for us to absorb that only to know is not enough. Okay, so this book, Paul and Stephen, is mostly based on this book. Of course, the inner transformation, I could have chosen other figures of the New Testament. Okay, so I could have chosen Peter because that was also a big transformation. I could have chosen Mary Magdalene because was also a big transformation. But because we were reading this book, myself, John, and Jeanette, and I had to summarize back because we stop and start, we start. So I thought it was a good idea to talk about Paul's transformation. The other thing that puzzled me a lot about this story of Paul, that seemed that, okay, he saw Jesus in the road to Damascus, and boom, he got transformed. He said he converted, he was such a bad person, a criminal, a murderer, etc. But suddenly he became an angel. It doesn't make sense, right? Otherwise, it looks to us, a normal human being, so impossible to change like Paul did. So what I want to say, to bring, is that no, that transformation, it took more than 10 years. It took 12, 14 years, according to history, who is writing his biography, okay? So let's go forward. I cannot control, so Daniel has to control my PowerPoint because of technicality. Okay, so the conversion of Paul of Tarsus. So conversion means just means changing one's religion or beliefs or the action of persuading someone else to change theirs, not necessarily an inner transformation. So go ahead. So you can keep changing, Daniel. So in the book of renunciation, this big heroine called Alcyone, she was very bright. She didn't need to come to the planet Earth, but she wanted to rescue her lover. So she said that during a gospel at home that actually any Christ message needs to be known, to be meditated or reflect upon, felt, and lived. So there is some steps. In this order of requisition, it is not enough just to be informed. So when you want to transform yourself, you cannot just say, oh, I know. That doesn't mean you really going to transform. People, faster you say, I know, is because you're not willing, or I'm not willing to really live through it, to change, okay? So you're gonna see this 4 inner transformation, these 4 steps, many slides ahead, because I'm gonna start to check what Paul achieved in each of the painful steps of this conversion. Go ahead. The 34 in the road of Damascus, he saw the figure of Jesus. So if you go down there, only in 46, Barnabas from the Church of the Men, the group of Peter, came to Tarsus to invite him to join the group to start his, ministry as his apostolate. So it took 12 years. And we're going to go through all these situations in between in order for us to see how difficult it is for us to transform. So you see here, those that did not read much or know, it's going to be a repetition. So you're going to see here that there are some characters that is very important in Paul's or Saul. Well, let's call Saul because it's his Hebrew name before he transformed to Paul. So Saul, he had Gamaliel, which was his teacher, which was his mentor, the rabbi. Jezreel or Stephen is the same person. He was a Jewish, but we're going to talk about the first martyr of Paul or Saul. He was stoned to Saul by Saul authority. Abigail is his sister. Ananias is the one that he's going to go after him to Damascus before he saw Jesus. Prisca and Aquila is two main characters that stay with him in the desert of Syria. And the men of the way, the Church of the Way, headed by Simon Peter, James, John Marcus, the evangelist Marcus, Timothy. The places, of course, the places, important places are, if you see the map, way down south, there is Jerusalem. And there's there the temple, the Sanhedrin, which is the big institution that holds the authority, religious authority, the commerce, everything, the money exchange authority, the health, public health authority is all in that temple and done by the high priest. Joppa is the port very close to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not at the port, if you see the map. Joppa is the port. So all the ships goes around the Mediterranean would stop in Joppa. And Joppa is very important because it's where Abigail ran away from the prison and ended up in Joppa. And Paul also met her, Saul met her, and fall in love with her in between Joppa and Jerusalem, a beautiful farm. Damascus, of course, is an important place because, it's where Ananias was hidden. And of course, the desert of Arabia, or near Palmyra, where Saul spent 3 years there to see if he could get himself to be a good follower of Jesus. And Tarsus, of course, is the birthplace of Paul of Tarsus. You see way up in the red flag, okay? So then there is just for, just for our knowledge, many epistles or letters were written to many communities, to the Galatians, to the Romans, etc., etc. Okay, so let's go ahead. So I chose in this chart 3 characters. So Paul of Tarsus, Gamaliel, Stephen or Abigail. Let's choose Stephen or Jezreel. And let's see the characteristics of these 3 people in terms of how much they know they are about the inner transformation. So Paul of Tarsus, in terms of social cultural status, very wealthy, well-educated. Gamaliel, Saul's mentor and high priest. Stephen and Abigail, from simple family, however, with very, very great moral values. They're all Jewish. Knowledge about Moses' law. All of them knew very well the Moses law. One was a rabbi, Saul was a rabbi, to replace Gamaliel. Gamaliel was almost to retire. Gamaliel, of course, was the high priest, a rabbi. And Stephen, they know a lot about the Moses law. They practiced at home with their mother. So they knew from the heart. They did not belong to the high hierarchy of the temple. Expectation about the Messiah coming. So many prophets, they already talk and predict that the Messiah was about to come. So what Saul thought about the Messiah? Well, one of his class is coming to their nation. He has to be one of them, not a Nazarene. Imagine, Nazarene was a poor place, a suburb of very, uneducated people, farmers, etc., etc. So, of course, he was not expecting the Messiah to be from that place. Gamaliel, he was open. It's possible he thought it was one of the priests, or one of the high hierarchy or big general. It's possible, but he was open. In Stephen and Abigail they were very open, no preconception. They read all the prophets saying about this Messiah, and they were eager to meet whoever was. They were expecting a very bright, a very wise person. Reaction to Jesus' figure, teaching and actions. Daniel. So, of course, he decided to define Jesus as an outlaw, fraud, a sorcerer. So when Jesus started to preach, that's his idea. Gamaliel was very open to learn. That's why he was converted, more or less almost converted to the teachings of Jesus. But he didn't have much time because he was old and then he got sick, but he was converted from the heart. Stephen and Abigail, as soon as they learned about Jesus, they had an immediate conversion from the heart. Immediate, both brother and sister, they were there. Persecution of Jesus' followers. So, Daniel? Okay. So, Saul took this persecution because he is a person that should protect the law of Moses. He has to go after the ones that are trying to be against. So he was harsh, but from the heart he thought he was doing the correct thing. Gamaliel, on the other hand, his teacher, tried to minimize it and even tried to change Saul's harshness. He even saved Saul, Simon Peter, from the stoning. And Stephen became the first martyr of Saul. Saul ordered his stoning to death, and he died. And Abigail also, after she converted by Ananias to Christianity, she died of depression, almost in the arms of Saul. So imagine Saul, how he thought. So in terms of spiritual level, I would classify, if you see, to know, to feel, to live, to transcend, that Saul only knew. He was in the first step. He knew about things, but no heart there. Gamaliel, he was in the second step, to say, he felt it. He could move easily forward. He didn't have time to live it because he was old. But Stephen and Abigail, they were already high spiritual, highly developed spiritual. So they did all four. They actually transcended. In the time that just before Stephen was dying in the arms of his sister, he said, "Don't condemn Saul." The time that Saul changed his faith, he's gonna be the best apostle that Jesus could have. And indeed, he was the vase chosen by Jesus. Okay, so go ahead. So, background of Saul of Tarsus, very educated Jewish Roman citizen. Was a citizen of the world because of his family involvement with the Romans. He was considered, he could have a certificate to be a Roman, but he was actually a Jewish. But he knew Greek like, a tongue language, Latin, so he was very educated. Was the doctor of the Mosaic Law, prepared to replace his mentor Gamaliel at the highest position at the Sanhedrin. Brilliant orator and debater. Next. So, Daniel. So let's see personality, how he has to erase all these traits in order to be genuinely considered Jesus' apostle. He had ambition very high, very high. It's okay, but not at the point to really be stubborn, like, and determination also is a positive trait, but if it's too much, it goes to stubbornness and he doesn't change. And the pride, of course, enters in between ambition, determination. Is always, there is an underneath pride that doesn't allow you to change yourself. Prejudice, very high prejudice, social class, one that doesn't belong to this high Jewish community or class. No. And religious faith. His is the one. The others is no good. Partisanship. Oh, very high feeling about this. So I brought the definition. It's so bad. We can see in our politics, right? Strong and sometimes blind adherence to a particular party, faction, cause, or person. So that was something that he had to overcome in order to be a true follower and apostle of Jesus. From the gate of Damascus to apostolate, painful steps of inner transformation. So everybody probably remember, if they are Catholic, from Catholic background or Christian background, that what happened in the road of Damascus. He was going after Ananias because he was so upset because Ananias changed the faith of his beloved Abigail, and he could not accept that. So he got so hateful, and he got a letter to go after Ananias. So he went from Jerusalem towards Damascus because he tormented one of the person to review his place where he was hiding. So you know already who Stephen was. He was already dead because he had been just stoned by the order of Saul. Abigail had just died almost in his arms. And who is Ananias? Ananias is the one that now he wants to put all his hatred on it. Okay. But then what happened when, no, I think, go back. And then he saw this when he was, imagine that he was going by with in the horse with a couple of servants. And he was tired. The desert, all these places to go through, very harsh. And of course, the sun or the heat could have been also the cause of this delusion. That's what people could say. However, Emmanuel says that because of all these events, and he saw how peacefully Stephen died and even asked Abigail to forgive Saul. How peaceful Abigail was when he asked Saul to really, learn about Jesus. I think you lost your sharing, Daniel. Okay. And then he started, while he was on his horse in this heat, he said, how come I look for this peace of mind my whole life? My whole life. How come these followers of the carpenter, how called, could reach this kind of peace that I'm eager to have it? How the man of the way, all these people could be so, kind to everyone and be so in peace, following and caring about the poor, etc., etc. And he could not feel this peace. So Emmanuel says that actually, because Saul was feeling shaky about this faith, his faith was shaky, all the spiritual mentor, including, of course, Jesus and Stephen, Abigail, they started to be very close to Saul, almost whispering something, for him to say, to reflect, about what's going on. So there was a spiritual work going on through this travel. Okay. So he got blind. He saw Jesus, and he didn't see Jesus. They said they saw bright. No, it's too much. Bright sun or light, and he only asked, who are you? And he said, I'm Jesus, who you are chasing. And why you are chasing me so much and my followers? Why are you doing this? So the loving voice was so touching. So what he asked, what you want me to do? And she says, enter in the city and you're going to be, someone will look for you. So this part is what puzzled me, because everybody say, oh yes, he saw Jesus, and then he just asked, what do you want me to do? And then Paul just did what Jesus wanted, and so on. There was no problem for Paul. Oh, that seems so easy. It shouldn't be so easy. Okay, so he got blind. He was in this small inn, and the third day, Ananias came to visit, to see him. Ananias, of course, during his sleep, Jesus appeared to him and said, look, go there in that inn and look for Saul. And he said, are you sure is Saul the one that's trying to get me? You want me to go there? Are you sure you want me to do that? Yes, go there. No, let me decide. You just follow my orders. So he went there and saw this voice, very kind voice that he thought was Jesus. But no, he said, I am Ananias. So Saul was by then so humble because he was blind. And he said, what you saw, what happened in the gate of Damascus was real. So imagine, Ananias didn't know anything, but Jesus got the image to him. So he said, that thing that happened to you is real. Our master sent me here to recover your sight. So then he was almost crying, and then he recovered his sight. And then he asked about Jesus, and Ananias actually gave the first notations from Levi or Matthew. The first notations gave it to Saul, and Saul said, can I have it? I'm going to copy during the night. He said, no, you can keep it because I know by heart what is there. Okay, so, but of course, Saul could not get rid of his traits. As soon as he read all the notations, he said, oh, now I know. Now I know. I'm going to go to the synagogue of Damascus, and I am going to tell them once for all that they're all wrong and what the real Savior is, Jesus is, all the teachers, etc., etc. And Ananias said, look, you're going to learn that no new faith, no belief should be imposed. You have to convert, but let them convert themselves. So you see the picture of a young Saul going there with the arms up and really wanted to change and talk about Jesus. Imagine in a synagogue if those people would follow him. So he felt a very, very painful rejection there. So next. So you see there that, no, that is, okay. So in the synagogue where once he was revered as a doctor of law. So imagine all the people that were attending the synagogue, they're followers of Mosaic law. So he, in his ambition, pride, whatever, all those traits, now he changed the partisanship. But his trait did not change. He wanted to impose the same model, the same way to impose those changes. So he was revered as a doctor, and there he was mocked, taken as a mystic, and accused of defection. He received insults and called coward, blasphemer, dog of the way, traitor of Moses. So imagine his state. Motionless, he watched all his old friends from Damascus left the room without even a gesture of greeting. What do you think happened to his pride? Very difficult, isn't it? So of course he went out. He sat in a rustic bench and wept. By the way, he weeps a lot. I don't know if it's Emmanuel describing, but I see that he has this emotional character. They struggle between the vanity of the past and self-renunciation had just begun. Just begun. So Ananias advised those who has already made mistakes or who is harboring some guilt needs to experience his own suffering before he can teach others. So Saul, before he changed himself, he suffered through all his mistakes. He wanted already to change others. Imagine. So when Ananias said, when suffering, I think I lost back back then. When suffering more, one can improve the understanding of people and things. You know, when you went through a struggle like AAA, you can help others, you can support others better. Okay. So he was in this mood of a really dark, feeling so down. And of course, at night, Ananias said, why don't you go to our church? This is a picture where restored now today, present church, but that was the place where there was a house of a washerwoman, which she rent part of her house in order to get money to raise her paralytic, handicapped son. So it was a very simple house, and Paul went there and they received Paul, although they knew who Saul was, they received him as a brother. The place was a miniature scene of the place when he saw the first time Stephen in Jerusalem. So it was a miniature, but all remind the simple, the house of the way in Jerusalem. The ceremony was even simpler. After the prayer and reading from the teachings of Jesus, commenting on the page read, illustrating with significant facts, Ananias went to the rows of benches and laid his hands on the sick, on the needy. Instead of sharing a piece of bread or pure water, you see, in that time they used to share bread. We sharing just the water now. Saul was highly moved as he ate a piece of the simple cake, which for his soul had the divine flavor of the universal fraternity. At the end of the meeting, Ananias prayed fervently. Okay? So that reminds us of fraternal treatment. Passes or reading of a very nice passage, uplifting passage, passes through the row of benches, a water, sharing, fluid water, and of course the prayer. Okay, so now Saul was advised by his mentor Gamaliel to go to the desert in Syria near Palmyra. So there is an oasis of Palmyra, and this oasis was a commercial center where peasants from countryside would come to sell their wares and getting their own provisions. The Palmyrians used to trade Indian and Arabian products from Persia, then they would sell to all Roman territory. So it was a busy place. So today, if you see all the ruins, there was a big city around there in this desert of Syria or Arabia's desert. So there, imagine, no, before, who he met. He met two people, Prisca and Aquila. Who knows who Prisca and Aquila were? Who were they? Okay. Prisca and Aquila, what they were doing there in this desert? A couple, weaving, a weaver. Well, they were there exactly because of Saul. Because Saul was persecuting all the followers of Jesus. And Prisca and Aquila, they had some wealth that some people wanted to steal from his father, so he got somehow, visible, and of course they went after him. So because of Saul, harsh persecution, the couple had to run away to the desert to hide there. And who is there now? Exactly, Saul appeared there. Okay. Yeah. So that's his destiny, okay? His destiny. Go ahead. No, okay. You're going backwards. Okay, go ahead. Okay. So there is an interesting dialogue after 1 or 2 days, because Saul didn't want to reveal his identity, because Gamaliel said, look, you have to be accepted first, because otherwise you're going to be smashed, killed before you even start, because you've been very much harsh to all these followers. So it's normal that they will be, fearful of you. They won't even want to talk to you. They won't even believe on you that you change. So he didn't reveal his identity. But then Aquila says, have you ever met Saul of Tarsus? By the way, the infamous enemy of Jesus has the same name as yours. Oh. And then Saul says vaguely, and Aquila says, you have only partial knowledge of the suffering the infamous doctor of the law imposed on us. It was quite arbitrary. I believe that perhaps Paul himself didn't even know about the atrocity committed by his unscrupulous man. So Aquila was still trying to accommodate, and he was a good soul. So I think he was a genuine person, nice person. And Saul said, and what do you think of Saul now? Without hesitation, Aquila says, the gospel says that we are to consider him a brother, very much in need of the light of Jesus Christ. I never saw him personally. I have prayed to God for him, hoping that a ray from heaven will enlighten him. And Prisca, more or less, I didn't put it here, but Prisca really, she shared the same good feelings of consider everyone as brother and sister like Jesus taught them. Okay, go ahead. Can you? So of course, as the time when there, he spent 3 years, but as the time was going on with the, Gamaliel died and all this emotional thing was coming, they were getting very well together as a brother, so he felt he had to reveal himself. He says one day that he was feeling very emotional. He says, my friends, under the Lord's inspiration, it is right that we confess to one another. My efforts to learn well the virtues of the faith that both of you have exemplified to me should be the testimony of spiritual renewal. I am the famous Saul of Tarsus. Of course, they were astonished, but if you go ahead, they accept that he tried, the thing goes, and but there is one excerpt here that says the great sentiments. So he was having great sentiments, but don't fool yourself. The great sentiments never inhabit the soul all at once in their full beauty. An individual poisoned by evil is like a container of vinegar, which needs to be emptied little by little. So he was sensing, and all the two brothers, the couple also knew that they could not give themselves fully because, there is no such a transformation immediate, in any human being. So Saul felt the need to expand his affection. His old life in Jerusalem had been conventional and dry. This is his reflection. As a prominent doctor of law, he had many admirers, but he had never felt fraternal affinity towards them. In that corner of the desert, however, he had a dedicated companion and worker, a former victim of his cruel persecution. How many like Aquila and Prisca were scattered across the world, eating the bitter bread of exile because of him? That's he's already reflecting. He had seen Christ, but to get to Christ, he had to go back and cross over the abysses. Which were the abysses? The disappointment in the synagogue of Damascus that he endured, the comfort of the humble Ananias Bethlehem. So he had to confront the simplicity with the true faith. That was harsh for him because he was raised in opulence. The lack of financial means, he was living as a weaver. Gamaliel's austere counsels, the anonymity. Oh, he was very, known. Now nobody knows him. He had to be happy with that. The loneliness, the abandonment of those dearest to him, the heavy loom under the blazing sun, the lack of any physical comfort, the daily meditation on the illusions of life. He had to meditate, and that was painful. All these had represented priceless help for his victorious decision. The gospel had worked as light on the difficult journey of discovering himself. So it is difficult. It is difficult. Okay, so in this, by then, I would check that he knows, he now is feeling, his heart is opening. Okay, go ahead. But there is something else to go. More emotion, more reflection. Tightly embracing his new brother Aquila, who was trying to wipe his tears, he recognized that in Damascus, after the grand vision of the Messiah, he had still harbored deep inside himself the pride, the despotic tendency of forcing his fellow men to think like him. So he's recognizing that even the vision of Messiah, hearing his voice, it was not yet there. Now he sees that he's different. All his character by then was there. Whereas now, he could examine his blameworthy past and feel the joy of reconciliation, turning to his victim with humility. At that moment, he felt as if Aquila represented the community of all those harmed by his cruel excesses. Gentle peace filled his heart. He felt more distance from pride, vanity, bitter ideas, and terrible remorse. Each teardrop was a little bile being expunged from his soul, renewing his feeling of tranquility and relief. How about if we one day we feel like that, right? Because we always have some guilt. So imagine now his spiritual state. He changed. He's now recognized. So to whom you think he started to be connected now? Before, no, it was difficult. No, one before. Yeah, there. So now he started to hear a spiritual mentor because his vibration changed. He's now, his heart was more open. He was humble. His pride was down. So Saul had the feeling he was hearing a loving voice, a loving and wise voice, expressing love and hope. He felt unexpected inner strength unknown to him before. Those exhortations, those gentle and friendly voices, which he attributed directly to the Savior, to Jesus, in fact, came from the kind-hearted martyr of the way, Stephen. Stephen would follow him in spirit, continually renewing his strength during his 30-year apostolate. First victim of Jerusalem persecution, which was Stephen, remained forever attached, united to the first executioner of the converts. Beautiful, isn't it? It seems a novel. So beautiful. Okay. But, of course, he went from the desert, he went back to Damascus. And then he heard from Ananias that how the Pharisees were doing, and of course, old trait of Saul appeared. So back to Damascus, Ananias report about the clash between the Jews and the friends of Christ over the circumcision. We're going to see this issue way after with Simon Peter, when he had to save Jesus, the gospel, to remove the influence of Jewish, the Mosaic law. So circumcision is a big, how to say, signal or whatever to be related to the Mosaic law. Now the Pharisees did not oppose to the activities of the way, provided that the followers of Jesus were faithful to Moses. Imagine. Thus the persecution system became more insidious and imperceptible. Isn't it terrible? Okay, you can go follow, but provide that you follow a law too. So what in the end they wanted? To get rid of Jesus' teachings. So of course, so that they had still this, trait of wanted to put the things clearly, he went to the synagogue to denounce these disparities. However, soon the audience recognized him. They start to call him a traitor. They demand his arrest. But by then, they didn't have the letter to arrest him, and Saul knew that if they didn't have the letter from the Sanhedrin, from the temple, they could not arrest. So he took advantage of the little confusion there, and he challenged them. Show me the letter. And meanwhile, he started to talk about gospel as the door of redemption. That nobody could arrest him, for the word of God is not bound to shackles. Look how brave he was still. Okay. So, Of course, he caused all this turmoil, and everybody knew that they're going to go after the latter in order to arrest him. So they advised him to go, to run away in a basket, like Moses. If someone wants to know the story of Moses, he was found in a basket. How they did that? Well, if you see the wall here down, some houses had the window or some kind of patio facing at the wall, but facing outside of the wall. So they knew about that. So they used one of these houses, and they put him during the night outside of the wall. And during the night, he ran away from the inside the basket. That's it. Okay. On the daybreak, Saul was towards Jerusalem with some barley cakes and the gospel given by Gamaliel. So Gamaliel, before he died, he gave this precious gospel written by Levi or Matthew with him. So Gamaliel said, look, this is going to be more useful for you, almost as identity of you saying, I belong to Jesus' followers. So he had to carry that precious identification. The travel from Damascus to Jerusalem by camel, horse, dromedary would take less than a week. So, however, was on foot. So if you see the map, this is actually the road that Saul took when he went to chase Ananias from Jerusalem, way south, bottom here, to Damascus, way up. That was the road that he took to go after Ananias. Now he had to trace back and clear up and fix everything until he get to Jerusalem. So that is how the things work. So he now is in Damascus and going back to Jerusalem. But he wanted to pass in between, if you see the Capernaum, in between the Nazareth, the lake there, the lake of Sea of Galilee. It's where Jesus really had most of his ministry there in small cities. So he did on foot. He didn't even join a caravan to get some resource. So he wanted to prove himself he can do it in a harshest way. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so here's Jesus. The Sea of Galilee, all the beautiful cities that is all the new gospel, you know, Capernaum, Bethsaida, Magdala, Canaan, Nain, all this place that is in the gospel, in some talk and some parable that's that. So you can go all the way in this slide, Daniel. So without revealing himself, so when we arrived there, he wanted to gather some information because he intended to write himself some kind of how to say, the gospel. Without revealing himself, he looked for Levi. So Levi, who received him with delight. So Levi was Matthew. So you see here, he was the tax collector. He went also, Saul revealed his love and knowledge of the gospel, and they spoke of the possibility of making few notes. So he never said who he was. He only said, I'm a friend, I'm a follower, sympathizer of gospel. Saul went to places where the master preached, to the little house of Peter, the tax collector's office, where the master called Levi to join him. He treated where Jesus treated all the blind, the lepers, where he healed many people. So he wanted to acquaint with all these stories that was still in the mouth of people. He went to Dalmanuta. Dalmanuta is actually Magdala, where he met Mary Magdalene. Then he got all the information about Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene, of course, talked about the resurrection of Jesus in the third day to her, how everything happened to her, happened all the other appearance of Jesus, everything. He got this, all the information he got. Then he head to Jerusalem. So for Capernaum, for that lake to Jerusalem is almost 80 miles. Imagine doing this by foot. Okay, so Saul went to Jerusalem and wanted to talk to the people from the house of the way. Of course, he says, how would they receive him? Because the last time he was there to prosecute, to put Stephen in jail, and finally stone him. So how now these people, the men of the way, will receive him? So Saul stopped in front of the humble house and immersed in the past, and with heavy heart, he thought about Stephen when he saw force him to stand before his friends and the authorities of Judaism at the Sanhedrin. However, now that he was about to face the Galilean apostle, his conscience was overcome with a sense of sacred veneration. He could not approach them without experiencing profound regret. All of them had suffered shame and humiliation because of him. If it had not been for Gamaliel, perhaps Peter too would have been stoned to death. Humbly, he should renounce himself in order to be reconciled with those he had harmed. Daniel? Daniel? Oh, come on. Okay. Prochorus answered the door when he asked for Peter. And Saul says, if he is here, tell him that Saul of Tarsus wished to speak to him in Jesus' name. That name caused a stir, fell like an explosion among the disciples. They said, wow, what this guy is coming here is, Saul did not present the precious gift of Gamaliel, which was the notation of Levi. That would be a nice way to present himself as a true follower, but he didn't. He wanted to go through the humiliation and this rejection, perhaps, business. Okay, go. So Peter, of course, it was in a very difficult situation because James was completely against. James was against. But John, the little John, young John, no, why not? Barnabas was in favor. And there was one other that was against. So 2-2. And there was a tough decision. Peter decided to call for a meeting that evening to ask all to help to decide. Peter did not want to seem unjust and imprudent. So he said to Prochorus, go and tell him to come back later, that I cannot leave more urgent matters for the time being. And Prochorus said, what if he insists? Peter says, if he has in fact come in the name of Jesus, he will understand and wait. Oh, beautiful, huh? So in the meeting at night, Peter tells all the other young disciples, before the Pentecost, I committed all sorts of wrongs as a weak and sinful man. I didn't hesitate to stone unfortunates, and I even advised Christ to do the same. I denied the master in his last hours. We must remember Christ in any initiative. Therefore, since Saul is a person in need, I don't see any reason to refuse him our fraternal hand. If Saul was a wolf entering in flock in sheep's clothing, would we kill him? No. So it would be more reasonable to think the possibility of hanging him. Peter proposed Barnabas to visit Saul personally in the name of the house. John applauded the idea enthusiastically. Okay. Why Barnabas? You're going to see throughout the book, Barnabas was a very soft, kind soul, very kind soul. And he didn't meet Saul before because he was in Cyprus. So
I guess Yasco lost her audio. Let's see if she come back.
food and took almost very sick soul to the house of the man. He recovered. He started. He wished even he asked to sleep in Stephen's bed because he wanted and to go through it emotionally. And they give even the gospel that belonged to Stephen to Saul. So that was very emotional for Saul. So now is another step that Saul had to go through. Why he had to disappear from Jerusalem? If you see back, Jerusalem is way down here in the map, and Tarsus is way up. So of course the people around Jerusalem, he was not happy with if they found out about Saul. The old friends would chase him as as a person, a traitor. And those that are Christian, they wouldn't accept him so easily because he did something very difficult for family members. So he said, look, you have to disappear from here for a while. So why don't you go to Tarsus? Go to Tarsus and be there a weaver, be there a humble person. Okay. So he went by foot from Jerusalem, if you see Jerusalem, the map, to Tarsus. So it was a long, long, long journey, passing through rough terrain, etc. So when he arrived in Tarsus, his hometown, his father's parents' home was there. So tired, Saul humbly asked his father help. So he knocked the door. His father was in a cane, old man, but the old man was harsh. Blaming him for the pain to his family, vexed with grief, mother's death. He said, your mother died because of you. Desertion for all the devotion, sacrifice that the family did for him. Was that the way he would pay all their dedication and love? Saul could face several armed men without losing the courage. He could sit on the most frightening tribunals, but before his obstinate old father, he did not react and began to weep. Then, yeah. And the father said, weep? I was never the example of such a cowardice. I struggled bravely on the most difficult days so that you would lack nothing. When I heard that you were going to marry a girl of parents unknown to us, that's Abigail, okay? His love. I wait for you to explain yourself in person. I often wonder if it was not that inferior creature you had chosen who would cause of such a moral disaster. On those remarks about Abigail, sweet Abigail, Saul recovered his courage and murmured humbly, "My father, that creature was a saint. God did not will for her to continue in this world. Perhaps, if she were still alive, my mind would be better balanced for harmonize my new life." Okay. So he says the father got so upset. And he says, "New life? What do you mean about that?" He said, "Yes, father. I mean that what occurred in Damascus was not an illusion, and that Jesus was my life. So this is a new life. Impossible. How can you forsake the love of your family, the venerable traditions of your name, and the sacred hopes of your loved ones to follow an unknown carpenter?" Saul objected. "It is certain that I have a blameworthy past, and I did not hesitate to persecute the followers of the truth. But from the last 3 years, Father, up to now, I do not recall anything that needs reconsideration." The old man reached the peak of his rage. "In your current, either as a madman or a common criminal, you choose once and for all between me and the despicable carpenter." So whisper between humility and longing, "Father, we both need Jesus." Isn't it incredible? His home had been his last hope. So he's tired, feeling after this long journey. "I have nothing, my father. I am tired and ill. I have no money. I need the mercy of others. Would you add to it by throwing me out?" Isaac, his father, felt Saul's appeal vibrating his innermost being, because he was a father in the end. But he said, "Rephrase that because no one is throwing you out. You yourself have completely deserted your friends and the purest affections. You are in need. It is only right then that you ask the carpenter for what you need. He who committed such absurdity ought to be powerful enough to help you." Wow. So Saul said then, "Goodbye, Father. You have spoken rightly, for I am sure the Messiah will not abandon me." I never really abandoned him. Okay. So there was one more test of humility. He was walking very down towards his uncertain destiny when he heard someone calling him insistently. It was the servant handling him a heavy pouch. "Your father wishes to give you this money as a remembrance." As a remembrance. Down deep, Saul felt the revolt characteristic of his former behavior. You see, he is not done yet. But at the same time, he remembered that, so he wanted to throw back, say, "Well, say to my father that I don't need that." No. But at the same time, he remembered that all these severe trials were perhaps occurring with Jesus' permission, so that his still obstinate soul would learn through humility. He felt that he had overcome many physical obstacles, but the master was now suggesting to him an inner struggle, so that the man of the world would cease to exist, giving him a chance to be rebirth of the first but loving and tender heart of a disciple. This was perhaps the greatest of all his struggle. So the moral suffering was the harshest one for him to overcome. So then he said to the servant, Zeus, tell my father of the happiness he has brought to me with his loving gift, and that I pray that God may help. So at least he did. Okay. So if I see these 4 items, I see now he living through the lessons of Jesus. You know, he sees what Jesus would do if it was in his spirit. So I think that he is already going to this overcoming almost the third steps, which is to live the Jesus teach. Okay. So he was there, of course, in Tarsus. Imagine how difficult it is to be in Tarsus, his birthplace, right? And unknown, weak, and simple weaver. And then he says, I said, we are never alone or abandoned. His nights had been full of endless anguish, heart-ending nightmares. One night, after fervent prayer, he stopped weeping. It seemed to him that a higher, unseen power was soothing his wounds of the wounds of the oppressed soul. So it's a more. Was he sleeping? He had the impression of having entered a delightful dreamland. He felt agile, and happy, as if he had been taken to an open field touched by springtime light. So imagine the scenario, okay? Brilliant flowers made of colored powder blossomed along the marvelous roads in a region bathed in indefinable light. Gentle harmonies were sounding his ears. He must have entered a marvelous kingdom beyond all comprehension. He had barely awakened when he was surprised of someone walking softly towards him. He saw Stephen, and then he saw Abigail, both young and dressed in garments so white and radiant that they look more like a shroud of translucent snow. So knelt and began to weep. Can you imagine? You're tired, and you see this marvelous vision, your family, the beloved Abigail. Abigail's advice, he says, after Paul cries and says, how can I do? What should I do? And he says, you have to love, work, hope nonetheless. In any circumstance, you have to hope. Lastly, she emphasized, and forgive. Can you believe how difficult it is to love, work, hope, and forgive? Oh my God. Then her shining figure seemed to dissolve as if made from fragments of sunshine. Nature was in peace, and he was in peace. A different understanding came over him, for happily recommending his journey. He would guard Abigail's words forever. Love, work, hope, and forgiveness. Isn't it beautiful? Next. We're finishing. Okay. So he was in Tarsus. This is when, but as a humble weaver, when Barnabas, from the Men of the Way, brought the request from Simon Peter to serve in the church of Antioch. In the Antioch, actually, if you read Paul Steve, is made in a cave. You know, this is a restored church that Peter found there. There, the spirituality got so high with Paul and all the people there that they start the phenomenon of direct voice start to occur. They would everybody will listen, hear the voices of the high mentors. If Jesus need to come, they would hear Jesus' voice, the high mentor's voice. But then, of course, they start to fight later, and they lost this ability. So, in order to, you can go ahead to the other, in order just to show you, I put, no, before, I checked this transcend, that he transcended later in his apostolate, because in Galatians 2, verses 20, which was written around 49 and 58, so 10 or 12 years later, already in the apostolate or more, 20 years sometimes, he said, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. Everybody that is Christian knows this passage. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself to me. So at that point, he was already Jesus that was on him. So this epistle was written between 49 and 58, and Paul was martyred in Rome as a Roman citizen, so he was decapitated, not crucified. In 64, some say it was in 66. Okay. Okay, information. All to know is not enough. You can choose, go forward. You can choose one of our struggle. It's not enough. When you say I know, it's because the person is not going through it. Thank you.
Leo.
Well,
Are you there?
Yasco, thank you for. Can you hear me?
Sorry, it was a little long, but I knew it was a little long because 100 page of the book. Very difficult to. So only this part that I said is 3 chapters. And this long chapter. Okay.
Thank you, Yasco, for bringing this reminder to all of us, and it was nice for me to revisit a lot of the information in this book and parts that I had forgotten thus far. But as the information that we are trying to bring here today, it's not only about Paul, but in the transformation. So what we would like to do is to open up. Daniel will unmute the
Okay.
microphone.
The person can unmute their own microphone. So
Right. So what I would like to ask everyone is to make sure that when you ask a question, obviously unmute your microphone. Right after you ask your question, you mute back again, so we don't have any distraction or any back noise. So at this point, we would like to open for any questions, any comments that you have, and if not, I mean, why not say how this can be applied into our lives? These teachings that we received from
That
the book.
was my plan B. If nobody wants to to make a question, I would say those 4 steps, and you can choose any struggle you have in relationship or in learning, adopting new lifestyle, whatever, and see what stage you are and what the difficulties you find to move forward. After what is the roadblock or whatever. Each one can say a little bit about personal.
Yasco, this is Kirsten.
Yes, Kirsten.
That was a very beautiful talk. It was really touched my heart. And I'm just allowing it to sort of sink in and reflect. But it was a great reminder and a great talk to be reflecting on, especially now. So thank you for that.
Well, some personal sharing.
If nobody would want to say anything or comment, I would like to make a comment here, Yasco, because this book, it's one of my favorites, and I have to say that it's interesting, and very hard to really conceive, or I don't know, really grasp the amount of or the I don't even have words to describe it, or how much Saul had to go against himself, the person who he was, the environment, everything that he had. It was like he was going backwards and had to face as well um, what he preached before, right? Because he had to face the persecution that he started himself, the environment that he created. He had to sort of a kind of like dismantle it. Excuse me. Sorry. And I think that really stands out to me on every passage towards the end of the book. So that's why I like to say that this book actually um, kind of it stirred up all kind of feelings inside of us. You're happy at one moment when you're reading this book, when you're studying the life of Saul in the transition to become Paul. You're sad, you're upset, because some of the things that he went through, obviously, we're going through right now in our lives. Um, and we already can perceive, but he was very stubborn, like as you said at the beginning. And you were like, no, don't do this. And you're kind of talking to him, and you were trying to also bring out that Saul out of you, right? So I think that this is, one of the highlights that I would like to bring. And this to me is very hard. I'm not gonna lie. There are some mundane things within me that I have to face it, and that is the hardest part, because you're going against yourself. You're not going against your neighbor, but you're going against the things that you have allowed yourself to become very solidified inside of you, and now you have to break it apart. You have to let go. You have to forget all the things, in order for you to live a more fulfilling life, right? So I think that to me, every time, I'm struggling, I kind of try to remember these things. And I think that it's not by chance that even Chico Xavier used to mention that this was one of the best books for him that he helped psychograph. So thank you again, and that's my
Yeah,
highlight of this whole thing.
you're right that exactly the moral part, our traits, the moral traits are the most difficult to not only to erase, but to replace by the new ones, new virtues. And we have all sort of excuse. Oh yeah, I'm determined. I'm not stubborn. I'm doing this because of that. So while we look for all the excuses, we are not being humble to ourselves. Doesn't matter what we have to tell to others. What Paul had to do is to go backwards in his footsteps, one by one. That's why it's interesting that he went from Jerusalem to Damascus. Now he had to go backwards. Same road from Damascus to Jerusalem. And in each place, he had to leave behind a baggage of his old trait, heavy trait, pride, stubbornness, impetuosity, partisanship. That is very difficult because he was used to impose what his faith, his belief. And he was granted with great capacity to talk, orator. That's why we have to be very careful when we have some talent, be careful where we use that. And of course, we're going to see in the book that he lost. Being silent over 10 years, he lost his capability to talk in public. Barnabas had to do in the beginning his job because he could not talk and his voice won't come out, you know. And the beautiful thing is that I think is hopeful for us. Once we change from inside, we connect and we start to listen to our mentors. When we say, I don't hear, I don't see, I don't, be careful. It's because we're not yet in a wavelength vibration in order to vibrate in the same tune. That's why we're not, because Paul didn't have any mediumistic ability, but in the end, he became a very, very powerful medium and a healer. You see how, and he was in his 40s when he started his apostolate, more than that, because he's 30 years old. Yeah, so he was in his 35, 36.
Okay. One final thing before I pass it on to everybody else again, Yasco and everyone, that actually this kind of helps me as well, is to become a visionary. In the sense that we cannot change what we have done in the past, obviously. We will have to face it as if we want to change, if we're proposing a change to ourselves, we cannot change what has happened. We will now have a chance with this reminder, at least to me, that for every decision that we're about to, to make, or every whatever we are about to do, we can at least pause and think, will this lead me to the right path, or will this actually put me in a situation that later on I'll have to turn around and come back on this road and fix it, right? Because this is what we see with Paul. Before he became Paul, he had to face all of these things. So I say visionary in this sense, where it allows us to project ourselves in the future, into a better future, before we do anything that we have
it's
to.
It's painful. You have to erase your trait.
Yes. Yeah.
Old trait, old you has to disappear and be renewed.
Exactly.
Through the struggle and pain. Okay, Jeanette, I see that you wanted to say from your board, because you've been reading with us.
I'll be after Jeanette.
Hi, Jeanette.
Jeanette, you're mute.
I'm mute. Jeanette?
Yes. Oh, yes. I have voice now. Yes. Okay. Yes, I was not saying anything. My sense you asked me to say something. I see myself in these days with like Paul, because in these days people is helping a lot, and we have to be very humble to accept the help. Like when his father gave to him the money, he went, oh, I don't want his money, but he thought I need the money. And for people who like to take advantage of situation, maybe for them it's very easy, but for people who's like to work to have the staff, sometimes it's difficult to see. Right. And I see, yes, exactly. And I see a lot of people helping and asking and calling, and this is a very nice. And I'm feeling like I'm accepting all this wording people send to us, the preoccupation and the help and everything. I'm accepting, and I was thinking about Paul. Oh my God, this is a test for us. To be in the position of accepting all the help. This is the time that a lot of people is going to face that, the help in coming, to be humble, to accept it, and, be grateful for having the help.
Exactly. Yeah, he had to accept Aquila. Imagine, he knew he was cause of Aquila and Prisca being there in the desert. He had to accept from the heart the brotherhood. And he had to confess to them that because of their example, and he had to be so sure that he would be accepted, he could be rejected, but what caught his heart was that those two were true followers of Jesus, because they were astonished with the revelation, but immediately Prisca and Aquila embraced him and wiped his tears, you know. And so it was beautiful for him to put himself like that in the open heart. He could have, it's not easy for him with that personality. No.
So because of time, we would like to open up for a couple more questions, comments. But we have a lot of people here that I'm looking at. Iracema, Paul.
I think Alba wanted to speak.
Albita wants to say something.
Oh,
Yes,
yes. So you have, sorry, I forgot about you, Alba. Go ahead.
I'm not presentable today to be in camera. First of all, Yasco, thank you very much for breaking down these 3 chapters. You are such a wonderful educator, just by giving us charts and maps and references. Just definitely help us to grasp better the subject. Every time I revisit Paul of Tarsus story, and every time I go back to the book Paul and Stephen, I'm a little bit like that Paul. I weep and weep and weep. Because of course, I feel like all of us, we are identifying ourselves with his journey and we compare with our journey on planet Earth. So I feel, Yasco, I'm not going to add any comment specific about the talk, but I feel, Yasco, and all of you, that this specific presentation, it was very therapeutic and a lot of healing. Yasco was talking, I was crying. Yasco was saying, Paul cried, and I was crying. And when we cry, right, sometimes, and it's just an expression of our soul trying to heal or to let it go, or and joy also, because just envisioning the joy of getting to the point to Paul God, just when I'm going to spoil the book, when he discarnates, he has an encounter with Jesus, which is beautiful. It's the last pages of the book, and just thinking that one day all of us, we will be having that encounter is completely emotional. So thank you very much, and thank you all for sharing this experience.
All the 3 actually came: Jesus, Stephen, Abigail, and Ananias. Those 4 were there coming. And he was blind when he died, so Ananias had to recover his sight there after he passed. And then he saw the beautiful, beautiful image, like that image that I read for you that he had about these 2 brother and sister coming. I thought it was so beautiful. We almost cried when we were reading, because, imagine, he gave up of loving any other person, having any relationship. He cut his hair. He was really, single, pure, and devoted to Abigail's figure. Abigail. So it was so beautiful. I imagine the emotion.
Okay. So I think in the history of Christianity, there is 2 figures that is very important, is very applicable, especially for us, that follows Jesus' teaching and called ourselves Spiritists. One is the life of Paul, and I think Yasco put very well, they summarize his transformation, especially because in Spiritism, one of the main principle to be a good Spiritist is, this make the effort to change ourselves to become better than we were, before. And Paul is one of the figure that is a mirror for us, and the other one is Mary Magdalene. That's the two figure in the early Christianity that is a model for us. But there is one thing that when we look at whole life and how he was able to change from a prosecutor to someone that helps to disseminate the message,
Follower, yeah, apostle.
the follower of Jesus, that is a big lesson for us, is that no matter who you are, no matter position you have, no matter if you are from this party or that party, from that religion, the other religion, but once you humble yourself and you change your position from prosecutor to the one that wanted to help to change the society, Jesus is going to be there with you. I think Jesus taught us that for his point of view, there is no enemy. There is no my side, your side. There is just one side, and this side is love. If you decide to follow love or to help one another, doesn't matter, where you come from, your ethnicity, or your background, your social status. So you're gonna be invited because that's the way we're gonna progress in our society. So it's a beautiful message. Thank you so much, Yasco. I don't think was too long, especially because we spend so much time in front of the TV, especially in this day that we are in quarantine, and listen news. And to stay here for 1 hour and a half, if you are complaining over there, mentally speaking, I think you have to revisit your 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 mental state. I think. Thank you so much. We are in the comfort of our home. We can walk around. We are not in the center, sitting over there. Still, so we are. So this is
For me,
something
it's
that
difficult. I wanted to stand up, walk, and
it's
move my
part of
hands.
your transformation, yes. This
And
is
now
the
I'm
part of the
here.
transformation, okay? So you are a
Inner
good example
transformation.
for that, the inner transformation, the external transformation. Thank you so much. I'll let Leo conclude our final part of our meeting. If
Okay. Well,
anyone has other
thank
comment or
you.
question, go ahead.
So if Yasko, would it be okay? I just need a yes or no for anybody. If you have any questions or comments, to write it down and send it to us or send it to you. That be okay?
Sure. No, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice because it also. I was thinking about this as Danny was saying. Some people, they don't like to speak or say it, but to continue with this message within ourselves, as we kind of start digesting and really understanding better, or even after we go to sleep, right? When
Well,
we
it's Leo. It's going to be a good survey or to do after this crisis pass. We should make a kind of a meeting to see what changed in your life, what change was made to your way to think about life.
with Paul,
Yeah,
with Paul,
after
right?
this crisis passed, we're not going to be the same anymore. No one is going to be the same. So it's going to be a good time for reevaluation of our inner transformation, I feel.
Especially us, because I was thinking about. I'm glad that you touched on this right now. Before we go to the not passes to our final prayer, I was thinking that many of us, hopefully, and we can only hope, and not like demand from others. If anything, we can demand only from ourselves, with our imperfections. Is that many people, unfortunately, will go back to the same old person, or even worse, because they were being asked to stay home, not to do certain things. But a lot of people may go back to the craziness, which is unfortunate. That's not what we want, but we understand it's human nature. So I think that you touched on a very interesting point.
It's good. It's good.
That we truly allow ourselves to engage in this transformation, and what will change. What have we value, or what are we valuing more now in our lives, that we don't have it at this moment. Well, obviously, hopefully, we'll be having the future again. But it's a good reminder. So on that note,
yeah, I translated that little psychograph message. I don't know if Daniel will put available. I put to English. But it's so beautiful how the Spirit says how their delight there in the spiritual world, what this crisis will represent to the human being. It's so beautiful, It's so beautiful.
Paula.
Oh, there's my initials. It was beautiful. And I'm very thankful because I haven't read the book yet. I have to be honest. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, Rita also was there.
Yeah, Ita said, thank you, dear Yasco. All when this is all over, I'll be hugging friends and family so much. Yes,
Hi.
that's what Rita wrote in the chat.
Yes, Rita, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, folks, let us find a comfortable position and really reconnect with our mentors and the mentors of our homes, the mentors of the SSB, and connect with our mentors, right? Daniel.